We often talk about the human body like it's this perfectly engineered, highly predictable machine.
Right, yeah, like you put good food in, you get good energy out.
Exactly. You rest the machine, and it repairs itself. It's a very comforting, very mechanical way to view our own biology.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you introduce the concept of stress into the mix, and suddenly that perfectly engineered machine starts acting like it's, well, haunted.
Haunted is a really good word for it. It kind of is.
Right, because you haven't physically injured the machine. You haven't deprived it of fuel. But just because of a thought, a worry, or like a looming deadline, the gears start grinding.
Yeah, the engine just completely overheats.
Exactly. The whole system just gets hijacked by something that is completely invisible.
It really is the ultimate ghost in the machine. But, I mean, the irony is that this ghost isn't ethereal at all. No, it's entirely biological. It is a profound, measurable physical event that takes over your entire system. It alters everything, from your brain waves down to your cellular function.
Wow. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tracking down that ghost for you.
Yes, we are.
We're pulling insights from Atkinson and Hilgard's foundational psychology research. The mission today is to figure out this fascinating, highly complex, and honestly, sometimes totally contradictory relationship between our minds and our bodies when it comes to stress.
Because it's quite a relationship.
It really is. We're going to unpack the literal biology of how a simple thought can just shut down your immune system.
Which is terrifying, but true.
Yeah, and we'll look at why two people can react to the exact same pressure in wildly different ways. Plus, we're going to go over some scientifically proven methods for taking back control of our own physiology.
Yeah, to really grasp the chaos of stress, I think we first have to establish what the body looks like at baseline peace.
Right, when things are normal.
Exactly. Biologically, that baseline is a state called homeostasis.
Homeostasis.
Yeah, and homeostasis isn't just resting. I mean, it is an incredibly active control process. It's designed to maintain a constant, stable internal environment.
So it's always working in the background.
Constantly. It takes these subtle, continuous adjustments just to keep your blood pressure normal, your oxygen levels balanced, and, your core temperature hovering right around 98.6 degrees.
So it's essentially like a smart thermostat in a house.
Oh, that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah, like you set a goal temperature, set point. And if the living room gets a little too cold, the thermostat senses that discrepancy and kicks on the heater to fix it.
Right.
And once the room warms up, the heater turns off. It's this constant minor balancing act.
Exactly. But the problem arises when that thermostat detects a massive sudden drop in temperature.
Like someone left the front door wide open in a blizzard.
Yeah, exactly. A threat to the system that requires way more than just a subtle adjustment. When homeostasis is severely threatened, the body just abandons that background balancing act entirely.
It just drops it.
And initiates the fight-or-flight response.
Right, the famous fight or flight.
Yeah, which is an all-hands-on-deck emergency protocol.
Yeah.
Your sympathetic nervous system revs up instantly. Your liver, which is where you store energy, suddenly just dumps massive amounts of glucose directly into your bloodstream.
Just flooding the system with sugar.
Right, because it provides instant combustible fuel for your muscles, so you can literally run away or fight for your life.
Wow. So the body is prioritizing immediate physical survival over long-term maintenance.
100%.
Which totally explains why unessential activities are completely halted.
Yeah.
Like digestion just slows down or stops.
Yep, saliva and mucus dry up. Actually, the air passages to your lungs physically widen so you can take in more oxygen.
Which makes perfect sense, I guess. I mean, you don't need to digest your breakfast if you're about to become a tiger's breakfast.
Exactly, you don't need to make saliva.
Right.
And that explains why, your mouth goes completely dry right before you step on stage for a big presentation.
Oh, I hate that feeling. So your body is literally prepping you for a physical altercation with the audience.
Pretty much, yeah. And while your sympathetic nervous system is handling that immediate adrenaline-fueled reaction, a secondary longer-term system kicks in too.
Okay, what does that one do?
Well, the hypothalamus in your brain signals your pituitary gland to release a hormone called ACTH.
Oh, okay.
And that ACTH travels through your bloodstream down to your adrenal glands. It acts like a chemical messenger that orders the release of cortisol.
Ah, cortisol. We hear about that one all the time.
Right, the stress hormone. And cortisol's job is to keep that blood glucose high and regulate minerals so your muscles have a sustained fuel source during the whole emergency.
So it's a brilliant, highly evolved system designed to save your life in a crisis.
It is brilliant. when it's used for what it was built for.
Right. And that's the catch, isn't it? The nature of the crisis.
Exactly.
Because that smart thermostat we talked about,
Yeah.
it's designed to blast the heater, fix the immediate physical problem like the tiger jumping out of the bushes, and then turn off.
Yep. Turn off and recover.
But what happens when the tiger is, I don't know, a mortgage payment, or a really demanding boss, or just this endless flood of emails?
The tiger leaves, but the mortgage is always there.
Right. If the threat is continuous and psychological, the heater never turns off. Does the body have to run out of fuel eventually?
It absolutely does. And that chronic mismatch is basically the foundation of modern stress research. It was largely pioneered by an endocrinologist named Hans Saleh.
Hans Saleh, okay.
Yeah, he identified this phenomenon he called the general adaptation syndrome.
General adaptation syndrome.
Right. And Sully discovered that no matter what the stressor is like, whether you are freezing, starving, or just dealing with a really toxic workplace, the body goes through a predictable three-phase biological response.
Okay, what are the three phases?
Phase 1 is alarm. That's the initial mobilization we just broke down, the sympathetic nervous system firing, glucose flooding, cortisol spiking.
The panic mode.
Yeah, the panic mode.
So if the alarm is ringing, but the threat never actually goes away, the body must have to adapt to that new normal just to survive, right?
It does, which brings us to phase 2, which she called resistance.
Resistance. Okay, so what happens there?
During the resistance phase, the outward panic of the alarm phase kind of subsides. Like your heart rate might normalize slightly, and you might actually feel like you're coping okay.
Like you're holding it together.
Exactly. You are actively fighting the threat, and your resistance to that specific stressor is incredibly high. But under the hood, the engine is running in the red.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you are burning through your physiological resources at a totally unsustainable rate just to maintain that facade of normalcy. Cortisol is still pumping, keeping your blood sugar artificially high.
Which has to inevitably lead to a crash, right? I mean, you can't sprint a marathon.
You really can't. And that crash is phase 3, exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
Yeah. If the threat continues indefinitely and you are unable to flee from it or fight it off, the body's cellular resources are simply depleted. The adrenal glands essentially just tap out.
They just give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The system fails, leaving the organism totally vulnerable to illness, severe organ damage, and in extreme cases, even death.
Wow. So in a modern context, that exhaustion phase is what researchers refer to as allostatic load, right?
Yes, exactly. Allostatic load.
It's the cumulative physical wear and tear on the body that results from the chronic overactivity of our stress response.
Good, spot on.
So Salai's model basically proves that we aren't designed to live in that resistance phase.
No, we definitely aren't.
And when we do, the allostatic load just builds up and the structural integrity of our health begins to collapse. And from the text, it seems like one of the clearest, most measurable examples of this is found in psychoneuroimmunology.
Say that 5 times fast.
Right. Psychoneuroimmunology.
Yeah.
But it's essentially this study of how our psychological state directly dictates the function of our immune system.
It is. And the mechanism there is so fascinating because it's a double-edged sword.
How so?
Well, in the short term, like during Salai's alarm, face stress actually boosts your immune system.
Hey, really? It boosts it.
Yeah, because evolutionary biology dictates that if you are running from a predator, you might get bitten or scratched.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right. So acute stress pushes immune cells out of your spleen and into the bloodstream and skin, just ready to fight off an immediate infection.
That's incredible.
It is. But chronic stress does the exact opposite.
It's essentially like a nation's defense budget, if you think about it.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like if you spend all your physiological money fighting the immediate, exhausting war of daily anxiety, keeping the troops deployed on the border for years on end, you have absolutely nothing left for basic infrastructure.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly what it's like.
Your internal defense systems just crumble, leaving the gates wide open for everyday invaders like the common cold.
Exactly. And the biological mechanism behind that crumbling infrastructure is cortisol again.
The stress hormone strikes again.
Yeah. While cortisol is necessary to keep your energy high during the resistance phase, one of its major side effects is that it actively suppresses lymphocytes.
And those are the white blood cells, right?
Yes. The ones responsible for fighting off viruses and bacteria. Basically, cortisol binds to the receptors on these white blood cells and signals them to stand down.
Just tells them to stop working.
Yeah. And over long periods, chronic cortisol exposure will even cause these immune cells to self-destruct.
Oh my God.
I know. This is why you are statistically much more likely to catch a cold or develop something significantly worse during or immediately after a highly stressful period at work.
Because your mind has inadvertently ordered your immune system to power down.
Exactly.
That is wild. And the damage of that allostatic load isn't just limited to catching colds, is it?
Not at all.
The text mentions that chronic overarousal of the sympathetic nervous system is heavily linked to coronary heart disease, or CHD.
Yeah, the heart disease link is huge.
Because when you are constantly stressed, your blood vessels physically narrow to increase blood pressure, right? To ensure oxygen reaches your muscles faster.
Right.
But chronically high blood pressure creates shear stress, which are basically these tiny micro tears on the inner walls of your arteries.
Yeah, it literally rips up the inside of your blood vessels.
And then your body tries to heal those tears by sending in plaque, which builds up, hardens, and eventually blocks the flow of oxygen to the heart entirely.
It's a brutal cycle. And researchers actually noticed a really distinct behavioral pattern in the patients suffering the most from this specific type of cardiovascular damage.
The type A behavior pattern.
Yes, exactly. And, clinically speaking, a type A individual isn't just someone who likes a clean desk or is, highly organized.
Right, it's not just being a perfectionist.
No. The toxic core of type A behavior involves deep-seated hostility, aggression, and this really obsessive sense of time urgency.
Just constantly feeling like you're running out of time.
Exactly. It's the hostility and that constant impatient urgency that keeps their autonomic nervous system locked in Salai's resistance phase. Their biology is constantly bracing for a fight that never actually happens.
And their arteries pay the price.
Big time.
But, the implication there is massive.
How do you mean?
Well, if the biological mechanics of stress, the cortisol, the glucose, the blood pressure tearing at the arteries, if all of that is universally hardwired into human biology, the trigger has to be subjective.
Ah, yes.
Because, two people can work for the exact same terrible boss, right?
Sure.
Facing the exact same impossible deadline.
Definitely.
And one person develops chronic stress, high blood pressure, and collapses into Salai's exhaustion phase. But the other person seems to thrive. They easily brush off the boss's comments, they crush the deadline, and they sleep perfectly fine.
It's infuriating when you're the first person.
Right. But they are in the exact same environment. So why is the biological cascade triggered in one and not the other?
That is the golden question. And it comes down to the filter of the mind. It's a cognitive process called appraisal.
Appraisal.
Yeah. The stress response doesn't actually react to the event itself. It reacts to your interpretation of the event.
Okay, so how does that work in real time?
Well, when something happens, your brain instantly performs what's called a primary appraisal. You are judging automatically and in real time whether the event is a threat to your well-being.
So if a professor suddenly calls on you in a crowded lecture hall, your primary appraisal is evaluating the danger. Like, are you going to look foolish in front of your peers? Is your social status threatened?
Exactly. And once that primary appraisal registers a threat, the brain immediately shifts to secondary appraisal.
Okay.
This is where you evaluate your coping resources. Your mind basically asks, do I have the tools to handle this threat?
Oh, I see.
So if you did the reading the night before, your secondary appraisal concludes that you are armed and capable. The threat is neutralized cognitively, and the biological fight-or-flight response is aborted before it really begins.
But if you didn't do the reading?
If you didn't do the reading, your secondary appraisal confirms that you are completely defenseless, the alarm bells ring, and the cortisol floods your system.
Wow. So the stress isn't the professor. The stress is the gap between the perceived demand and your perceived resources.
Beautifully said, yes.
And it seems like some people just naturally have a wider buffer there. Like they have this underlying personality trait that acts as a protective shield during that whole appraisal process.
We do. Psychologists refer to it as hardiness.
Hardiness.
Yeah. And hardiness basically operates as a fundamental belief system about your place in the world. It's composed of 3 specific traits: commitment, control, and challenge.
Break those down for us.
Sure. So commitment means you believe it's deeply important to stay involved in your life and with the people around you, rather than just alienating yourself when things get difficult.
You lean in instead of pulling away.
Exactly. Then there's control, which is the internal conviction that you can actually influence your circumstances. You aren't just a passive victim of fate or external forces.
Right. And challenge is basically the cognitive reframe, right?
Yeah.
Like a hardy person doesn't view stressors as catastrophic threats to their survival. They appraise them as normal, expected parts of life that provide an opportunity to learn.
Yes. So They appraise that terrible boss not as a tiger trying to eat them, but as a complex puzzle they actually have the power and resources to solve.
And the physical impact of that cognitive filter is just staggering. I mean, the research extends this to optimism as well, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The data on optimism is incredible.
Like, studies have tracked patients undergoing coronary bypass surgery, which is a massive physical trauma to the body.
Huge trauma.
And they found that optimists, people who generally expect positive outcomes, actually have significantly faster physical recovery rates than pessimists.
Yeah. Their immune systems mount a much more effective response, and they have lower overall mortality rates.
So the way they appraise their future literally dictates the speed at which their cells repair physical tissue.
It sounds like magic, but it's just biology following the mind's lead.
Okay, wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Go for it.
I love the idea that optimism and hardiness can save us, but is this just another nature versus nurture debate?
In what sense?
Like, can we really just think our way out of a biological flood? If millions of years of evolution wired my nervous system to panic at the first sign of danger, can a positive attitude and a sense of challenge actually stop a cortisol spike once the alarm is tripped?
That is such a good question. And that exact tension is the center of a major debate in psychology right now regarding how much control we actually have over our biology.
Okay, so what are the two sides?
Well, on one side, you have the strictly evolutionary perspective. This is championed by researchers like Dr. Rosalind Thomas. Her argument is that universal coping reactions are hardwired into our ancient brainstem.
The primal brain.
Right. When an event demands quick mobilization, the limbic system just bypasses conscious thought entirely. It triggers the adrenal glands before you even realize you're stressed.
So it's a reflex.
Exactly. Dr. Thomas argues that when we are pushed into high alert, this biological hijacking is so overwhelmingly powerful that it effectively shuts down the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of the brain responsible for logical thought.
Right. So in her view, the biology simply overrides the individual mind. You cannot outthink a cortisol flood once the dam breaks.
Which, I mean, makes sense. It's really hard to reappraise your feelings about a math test when your brainstem is utterly convinced there is a bear in the room.
The physiological noise is just too loud.
Yeah. But there has to be a counter-argument to that, especially given all that data on optimism we just talked about.
There is. And the counter-argument comes from researchers like Dr. Eric Mansager.
What's his take?
So he doesn't deny the ancient freeze-flight-fight response, obviously, but he argues that human beings didn't stop evolving at the brainstem.
Right, we have the rest of the brain.
Exactly. We developed this massive neocortex, which is specifically designed for complex problem-solving and simulating the future. Mansager argues that our distinct, stable personality traits dictate how we deploy that neocortex. Our higher-level cognition filters reality so aggressively that it actually dictates what the brainstem is even allowed to perceive as a stressor in the first place.
Oh. So it stops the alarm from tripping at all.
Exactly.
Okay, so without taking a side, because we're just looking at the source text here, the conclusion seems to be that they are basically both right.
Yeah, they really are.
We have these patterned, predictable biological responses dictated by our evolution. But our personal choices, cultural context, and personality traits reciprocally influence how we experience that biology.
It's a two-way street. The mind and the body aren't in a hierarchy, they're in a constant, complex dialogue.
That's a great way to put it. And since our individual appraisal of an event, our side of that dialogue determines our biological reaction, we have a scientifically validated entry point to actively intervene.
Yes, we do.
Like, we don't have to just wait for the allostatic load to ruin our immune systems. We can train ourselves to manage stress by fundamentally altering how we cope.
Exactly. And psychologists generally divide this intervention into two main categories. You've got problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping.
Okay, so problem-focused coping is tackling the external stressor directly.
Right.
You're taking active steps to change the environment. Like if your boss is toxic and triggering your resistance phase daily, you polish your resume and look for a new job.
Exactly. You just remove the source of the friction.
But emotion-focused coping is entirely internal.
Yeah, it's what you deploy when you cannot change the stressful situation or when you just need immediate physiological relief to prevent exhaustion.
Like you can't quit your job today, so you have to focus on down-regulating your autonomic nervous system tonight so your immune system can actually recover.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. If I'm stuck in that loop, I feel like I need a dashboard warning light.
A dashboard.
Yeah, like you can't fix an overheating engine in your car if you don't have a temperature gauge to show you it's running hot.
That's a very good point.
And most of us walk around completely disconnected from our own physiology. We don't realize our heart rate is elevated or our jaw is clenched until we get a massive migraine.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's where the concept of biofeedback comes in, which seems like an incredible tool for emotion-focused coping.
Biofeedback is amazing, and it provides exactly that dashboard you're talking about.
How does it work?
Well, in clinical training, a patient receives real-time mechanical information about their physiological state. It gives them a window into the autonomic functions they normally can't feel at all.
Okay, give me an example.
Sure. So, to treat severe tension headaches, doctors will attach electromyography electrodes to a patient's forehead.
Just right on the forehead.
Yep, and those electrodes measure the microscopic muscle contractions that the patient is entirely unaware they are even making.
Well, and then what?
The electrical signal from the muscle is then translated into something the patient can perceive, like a continuous auditory tone.
Oh, like a beep.
Yeah. As the muscle tenses, even fractionally, the pitch of the tone goes up. As the muscle relaxes, the pitch goes down.
That's wild.
Right. So by sitting in a chair and consciously trying to lower the pitch of the tone, the patient is unknowingly learning how to deeply relax that specific muscle group.
So the neurological loop is being rewired in real time.
Exactly. And after 4 to 8 weeks of this training, patients learn to recognize the subtle internal onset of tension and reduce it on their own, completely without the machine.
They have literally trained their brain to turn down the physical thermostat.
They really have. And, another highly effective physiological intervention that does something similar is aerobic exercise.
Really? Just regular exercise?
Yeah. Sustained aerobic activity like jogging, swimming, or cycling acts as a biological buffer. People who exercise regularly actually show significantly lower baseline heart rates and a blunted blood pressure spike in response to psychological stress compared to sedentary individuals.
Which is fascinating to me because exercise is technically a physical stressor.
It is.
You are increasing your heart rate and demanding energy from your body.
Oh.
But by doing it voluntarily, you are essentially stress testing the machine.
That's a great way to phrase it.
You are training your cardiovascular system to handle the physiological load more efficiently. So when a psychological stressor hits, the system doesn't just panic.
Exactly. It's used to the load.
But what about the cognitive side? What about those type A individuals we talked about earlier who are actively tearing up their arteries with hostility and time urgency?
Yeah. That is where we see some of the most dramatic interventions in the literature. Researchers wanted to know if cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, could literally save the lives of type A individuals by changing how they appraise the world. So they gathered a group of type A patients who had already suffered at least one heart attack.
Oh, wow. So their allostatic load had already resulted in severe, life-threatening damage.
Exactly. The stakes were very high. And the therapy was designed to help them identify their subjective stressful triggers and systematically dismantle their hostile coping mechanisms.
Wait, how exactly do you train a deeply impatient, hostile person to just stop feeling a constant sense of time urgency?
Well, the methodology was brilliant, honestly, because it forced a cognitive override of an autonomic response.
What did they do?
The therapists literally assigned these highly impatient patients the task of going out into the world and standing in the longest lines they could find.
Are you serious?
Yes, in the bank, at the grocery store, wherever.
Oh my God, for a type A individual, standing in a slow-moving line is a massive trigger for the fight or flight response.
Yep, it's torture for them.
Their blood pressure must spike, their hostility boils.
Yep. But they were instructed to use that exact time to practice cognitive reappraisal. Instead of fixating on the delay and spiraling into Salai's alarm phase, they were taught to use the time in line to actively observe the people around them. Strike up casual conversations or just reflect on things they usually claimed they were too busy to think about.
So they were forcing their neocortex to step in and tell the ancient brainstem, hey, we are not in danger, we are just at the grocery store.
Exactly. They systematically dismantled the specific behaviors keeping their autonomic nervous systems on high alert. They worked on speaking slower, eating slower, and consciously stopping themselves from interrupting others.
And did it actually work?
It did. Over time, this cognitive and behavioral rewiring dramatically reduced their physiological reactivity, and the longitudinal results were staggering.
Tell me.
After 4.5 years, the experimental group, the ones who practiced standing in lines and reframing their thoughts, had a heart attack recurrence rate almost half that of the control group who received standard medical care but no cognitive therapy.
Wait, really? Cut in half?
Almost in half, yes. By changing their cognitive appraisal of the world, they measurably altered their cardiovascular health.
That perfectly encapsulates the vast ground we've covered today in this deep dive. I mean, our bodies come equipped with an ancient universal biological alarm system, the fight-or-flight response.
It's a marvel of evolution.
It is. It's a cascade of glucose and cortisol, brilliantly designed to help us survive immediate physical threats. But the modern world is filled with psychological stressors that don't resolve.
They just keep coming.
And when that alarm rings constantly, it traps us in a state of chronic resistance, leading to allostatic load, immune system suppression, and serious cardiovascular disease.
But the takeaway is that we are not helpless victims of that biology.
Right.
The body may be the speaker system, but our unique minds act as the volume knob. Through our primary and secondary appraisals, our underlying hardiness, and our cognitive reframing, we dictate what the brainstem even perceives as a threat.
Yeah. And by utilizing problem-focused coping, biofeedback, aerobic exercise, and cognitive behavior therapy, we can actively rewire our neurological loops and stop modern life from pushing us into physical exhaustion. It's a really profound realization that the mind and body are locked in this endless reciprocal conversation.
It really changes how you see yourself.
It does. Which brings me to a final thought for you to chew on. The research briefly notes that people who are able to find deep meaning in a traumatic event are statistically less likely to develop emotional and physical illnesses afterward.
Yeah, the meaning-making process is incredibly protective.
So if our physical health, our cardiovascular longevity, and our immune system function are so heavily dictated by our cognitive appraisal of a situation, could we theoretically neutralize any modern stressor just by rewriting the narrative of what it means to us? Like, if we can reframe a tragedy into a challenge, do we turn off the cortisol completely? Is there a biological limit to the power of our personal narratives? Or when it comes to navigating the modern world, is the mind truly the ultimate master of the body?
That is a big question.
Something to mull over the next time you find yourself stuck in a long line. Until next time, keep exploring.